There are some moments in life that split your world into two parts. The life you thought you had. And the truth you never saw coming. For me, that moment happened 48 hours after I buried my husband. I remember every detail. The rain tapping against the windows. The smell of fresh coffee sitting untouched on my kitchen counter. The silence inside a house that had suddenly become too big for one person. Then came the knock at the door. At first, I thought it was another neighbor. Maybe someone bringing flowers. Maybe another sympathy card. Instead, I opened the door and found my son standing there. His wife stood beside him. And behind them was a man in an expensive suit carrying a black leather briefcase. The lawyer didn't surprise me. The look on my son's face did. He couldn't look me in the eye. Not once. And in that instant, before a single word was spoken, something inside me knew. This visit wasn't about grief. It wasn't about family. And it certainly wasn't about saying goodbye to his father. They wanted something. I just didn't know what yet. What I didn't realize was that my husband had known this day was coming long before any of us did. And before he died, he left behind one final plan. A plan that would expose secrets, destroy a marriage, and force my son to confront the man he had become. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 67 years old. And this is the story of how the people closest to me almost took everything my husband and I spent 40 years building. Until one letter changed everything. Story. Before I tell you about the lawyer standing in my doorway that rainy morning, you need to understand who my husband was. His name was Thomas. Most people knew him as a businessman. The owner of a successful logistics company. The man whose trucks seemed to be everywhere. But that isn't who I remember. I remember the young man with dirt on his boots and calluses on his hands. The man who asked me out while pretending he needed directions he clearly didn't need. The man who worked 16-hour days so our family could have opportunities he never had. We were married for 40 years. And in all that time, Thomas lied to me exactly once. The lie wasn't cruel. It wasn't selfish. In fact, he told that lie because he was trying to protect me. 6 months before he died, he came home from a doctor's appointment and sat alone on our back porch. For nearly an hour, he stared at the oak tree he planted the year our son was born. He barely moved. Barely spoke. And when I finally asked what the doctor had said, he gave me an answer that felt wrong the moment it left his mouth. Everything's fine. After 40 years of marriage, I knew when my husband was hiding something. But I never imagined the truth. A week later, he sat across from me at our kitchen table and told me he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. No treatment would stop it. No surgery could remove it. The doctors weren't talking about years. They were talking about months. I thought that was the worst thing I would hear that day. I was wrong. Because after a long silence, Thomas reached across the table, took my hand, and said something I'll never forget. Eleanor, someone is already preparing for what happens after I'm gone. I stared at him. What are you talking about? For a moment, he looked older than I had ever seen him. Tired. Disappointed. Heartbroken. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. I think it's Daniel's wife. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about death anymore. It was about betrayal.